I'm Maria Shamkalian, the Vice Chair of Pennsylvania Film Industry Association, and I'm truly honored to host a wonderful guest today, Joseph Sikora, who many of you have seen in many wonderful shows. Of course, Tommy Egan on Power, and you've seen Joseph on Ozark, on Boardwalk Empire. I can just continue listing all our favorite shows, but I think instead of that, we'll just jump straight to the questions, and we're truly grateful to Joseph for taking time to help aspiring actors move up the ladder and hopefully one day make it where he is.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Thank you, Joseph. Appreciate it. So, of course, the first question is, how did you get started and how did you make it where you are in this difficult and competitive industry to break into?
Well, we didn't know anybody. I had no connections into this industry at all. Growing up, I didn't know anybody that was an actor. I just was watching television, and there was a show on when I was a little kid called Kids Incorporated. I think that's where Fergie got started. And it was kind of, they did little sketches and skits, and then they played music. And it seemed like the best of both worlds, like a rock stars and acting. And I said to my mom, "Hey, Mom, I want to be an actor." So she said, "All right, if you want to be an actor in a month, you come back and ask me." So I came back next month. I said, "Ma, I still want to be an actor." So she got out the yellow pages back when we used to have yellow pages before the internet and all that stuff. And we looked up acting. There was nothing. So she looked up theater. And I auditioned for a role in A Christmas Carol at the Goodman Theater. But I didn't get the role, but they suggested that I audition for a play out in the suburbs of Chicago. I auditioned for a play called The Little Prince. So I got the role of the Little Prince. And then from there, we invited some of the agencies down, and they came and they signed me up. I did a couple of commercials as a kid. And then in high school, I just kind of, got into more mischief, did not really pursue the craft as much. But then I always stuck with it. I always took acting classes to kind of get my parents off my back, like I was doing something. Mm-hmm. But I really always just loved the pretending part. And I always had a really vivid imagination and really stuck to it. So I've been in this game for a long, long time. I always say that it only took me 25 years to get a lead on television. So it really is something with stick-to-itiveness, but that really was it. I just did a couple of commercials as a kid that paid for a lot of my college. So I only had to have a job. I had one job in college from here and there, and did my classes and graduated early because I laid on the classes. And then I really thought I was going to become a fireman, but I just really always had this calling to be an actor, to be on the stage primarily, but then also audition for film and television. But it took a long time and a lot of heartache. And it's when people always ask me for advice, I always say, if there's anything else you want to do with your life, do that, because this is a tough business.
It is a tough business indeed, but it's great that you're bringing out that it's not an overnight success. And rejection is okay, and it's part of the job. So you just keep on trying and trying. So thank you for sharing that you've had challenges.
Right, yeah, right. I've been doing this for almost 33 years.
Wow. So what helps you get into the mindset of your character, whether it's when you get to stage or on set?
Well, some of it is like, it's so easy to judge people on television, especially for me. And you're like, oh, this person's a terrible actor, or that person's a terrible actor. But I think that we often negate all of the work that goes into making a character. One of the reasons that characters that I finally started having more and more success on television and film with the characters is I started to really and truly incorporate the stage work and the character work that I would do for theater into film and television, make big choices and stick to them, for better or for worse, fail and fail big if that's going to be the fail, but really stick to those choices. And not just because oftentimes, especially in the American film and television, they place less credit on the craft and more credit on being the best version of yourself. So they kind of negate the craft in a lot of ways, what I've found in in the American arts. So like, oh, we really want the guy. So instead of like, you know, for better or for worse, places like, you know, England or Poland or Italy is so much more about the craft of acting and becoming that other person and giving credit to that skill. So I guess my advice would be, when you do that, I mean, sometimes if you have to tell white lies to casting people, tell them those lies. Who cares about them? Care about the craft and make those choices and do that dedicated work to make that character a real human being. Don't comment on the person, become the person.
Mm-hmm. And with becoming the person, that's actually lead me to the next question. When you're becoming the person, there's so many different emotions that you're going through and experiencing daily. And there are some fantastic actors who are just playing themselves. You see them on interviews and it's just them. But they're
true.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. They're doing a fantastic job doing what they're doing, but they're also characters where it's not who you are. So how do you continue leading a normal life at home and also you're authentic on set when it's such a different character?
Well, I'll tell you, I'll answer that in two parts. First, I'm going to answer about the different kinds of actors. There are actors who I greatly admire, who are always kind of themselves, but the genius of those people is that they're true, regardless of that. They're always themselves, but they're really that garbage man, or they're really that doctor. They always just kind of look and sound like them. But the genius of that is authenticity and being true to being that human in that situation. So if you can do that, that's 90% of it. And the 10%, which is what I always strive for, is that extra bit of transforming yourself, doing a different dialect, doing a different physical characterization for that, you know, for that person in that situation. To me, that's the most delicious part of acting, is that. Now, to answer your second question about how do you do the work and how do you leave that when you come home, we don't all have the luxury of being Daniel Day-Lewis and being cast in a role and having a year to work on that role, or even, you know, months and months. We often have the rehearsal process of 3 weeks, a tech week, and then we're on stage for however long the run of the show is. Or oftentimes on film and television, you are cast, and sometimes, especially if you're the guest star, you're the last person cast in that show, and maybe you work the next day. Yeah. So take the pressure off of yourself. Really try to remember to have fun. That's what I have to do all the time, is remember to have fun and do the homework at home. Now, you hear the word method acting a lot. Method acting is an absolute luxury. Robert De Niro was a method actor. He was, you know, doing his, he learned how to drive a bus, and then he was playing the bus driver. We don't all have that luxury. So when you don't have the luxury of being afforded the method, go with your imagination and stick to it. Make those choices and stick to it. Now, I have a wife who is not tolerant of Tommy Egan is not going to come to my house. My wife's not having that. Yeah. So you have to learn to do the work, do the homework at home, and do the work at work. So the more you work at home, the more you go over the stuff, the more you try to figure out what your process is, even if it's just sitting, watching television for whatever reason, watching people for whatever reason, whatever your method is to getting to the character, stick to that and give yourself credit. I used to beat myself up because, you know, I'm a Polish American, hardworking, you know, my parents, you know, you got to work hard, work. And I never gave myself the credit that I was working, that I was thinking about the character, that I was trying to see the world through the eyes of this other person, because it didn't feel heavy. It didn't feel like work. And I think that we have to forgive ourselves and know that if we have the passion to pursue this craft, give yourself a break and know that you're doing that. But don't forget to make those big choices after you're doing that. But take what time you need and give yourself a little bit of credit. Be kind to yourself. I've had to learn to be kind to myself, because when you do that, then you're able to be kind to other people and be confident. Mm-hmm.
In one of your interviews, you've mentioned that it's a blessing for an actor to be able to play crazy extremes, but the key is to be honest and authentic and to have the balance. So how do you keep that balance without being too much or too little? How do you know where that golden mean is as an actor?
I'd say that you know where that is by what direction you take. And by that, I mean, a lot of times when things come off inauthentic, that's because the person is going this direction. I'm going to show everybody how sad I am. I'm so sad. This and this and that. I can't believe this person is dead. Or I'm like, I'm so happy. And you're like, that person's not really happy. So they went this direction. You got to go this direction. Mm-hmm. You got to go inside. And you really have to feel those feelings. Go inside yourself. Find those feelings inside here. Because if you go this direction, it goes out through the top of your head and into the atmosphere, and it connects to the transcendent. And then we all feel it.
Yeah. You brought up theater. Mm-hmm. So with theater, how do you deal with stage fright and fear of forgetting the lines? And what are some ways that maybe you found efficient in remembering those lines? And what do you do if you do forget a line? I think fears.
Well, I think that the show must go on theory is really big in theater, that if you do forget the line, the show's not going to stop you because you forgot the line. So you can kind of take a little bit of solace in that there is safety up there in some capacity. It's like anything, you put in the work. For me, it was just lines were repetition, 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 repetition. But then there is value in that your body will remember the lines, and that, when you embody the character, and also when you're kind of going over the blocking in the scene, it helps with the kind of the visceral memory of like the line comes here and the line comes there. And I never had stage fright growing up. Early on when I was doing theater, when I was a young man, I never had stage fright until I was on Broadway. And I was doing a play called the Caine Mutiny Court-Martial. And the director of that play, during intermission, where after intermission, I basically talked for 15 minutes. I'm being questioned on the stand. And at intermission, the director berated me, like yelled at me, told me I was the reason the play was failing. And it was a crazy experience. And it blew my mind, but it was truly the first time in my life where I was totally aware that I was just an actor, not this person. And there was people in front of me, and that this was all fake in some way. So I never had that. It was always a magical experience. It was always kind of like going to church in some ways, where it was transformative. And this director, really misguided anger, kind of stole my innocence in some ways. So since that time, which was 2006, I never had stage fright before, but I've never not had stage fright since. And that includes on the stage, in front of the camera, anything. I always get this hyper awareness that I never used to have. It was kind of this wonderful release and engagement in there. And so I'm always kind of fighting to get that back. So not necessarily fighting, but releasing, letting go, having confidence. And the best thing that I can do now is being overly prepared. Mm-hmm. So I used to be prepared, but I used to never, the thought of anything going wrong on the stage never, ever entered my mind. Now it's the only thing on my mind is failure. So it's constantly getting to a place of over preparedness so I can just throw it all away and feel safe again.
You brought up stunt work. Can you please elaborate on how much of action is an actor allowed to do? What if an actor does have background as stunts and wants to do his own stunts on set? Is that a possibility, or because of the whole insurance issues you're not allowed to? How does that world work? Okay,
I have a lot of experience in this, so I'm going to break it down for everybody. Mm-hmm. I think that if you're a young actor and you're lucky enough to get booked in a series regular or a lead of a new series or show, I think it's very important to meet with the stunt team if you're going to be doing action type stunts in any capacity. Meet with the stunt team and take their classes. Learn how to do the stunts well so you can do as much or as little as you choose. Secondly is this, mostly on television stunts, I mean, you could be Tom Cruise and you can do everything. That's fine, but you're taking those risks. And television stunt people, especially if you're a guest star or you're a recurring, will almost always want you to do as much stunt as you possibly can, even if it's risking you, because you're expendable. So you have to stick up for yourself. Right before my wedding, just because I've been doing stunts for the past 25 years and I've taken stunt classes, I've gotten stunt adjustments, I'm athletic, I know how to move my body. I was an amateur boxer for 7 years, so I know how to move and punch and look real doing that stuff. So people would do it too much. But right before I got married, the stunt coordinator on a project, which I won't mention, I kept doing the stunt. And then I did the stunt with the stunt guy. And then they're like, can we put the actor in and do the stunt with you? And I was like, no, I don't do that. I'll do it with the stunt guy, but I'm not going to do it with another actor. They're like, no, this guy played college football. He knows how to move. I said, well, but he's not a stunt guy, you know? And then they finally convinced me. So I had a 6'6", 260-pound guy tackle me over a table, full force, onto my ribs, crack part of my sternum, bruise my ribs on the side. It took 8 months for that to heal. And they tried to make me feel bad about it. So just know that when it's above, I should have said no, and I knew that I should have said no. So you have to know when to call your limits. I had to go to my wedding where I couldn't totally breathe in because I was still in pain from my ribs. So I don't do any big stunts like that anymore. No, not for me. Even in Ozark, you know, anybody who saw Ozark, my character Frank Jr. gets thrown off the boat. Could I have done that, you know, fallen 2 stories into the lake and done that? Yeah, probably would have been fun 10 years ago. I'm not doing that anymore. You know, that's why the stunt guy who did a brilliant job, who looked exactly like me, same build, same everything. And don't forget this, that guy had a job because I said no.
That's true. That's true. Okay. So as a person who knows it from inside, not a safe profession. Like you have to be all. I've seen stunt people get fired for being too hesitant. They're like, jump off of this, and the stunt guy's like, they're like, next. You gotta go. So that's your job. Your job is to put yourself in harm's way if that's what's required. In Power, there's a pretty well-known scene where I run over the guy who gets hit by the car, bangs the windshield, flips over the car. That stunt guy really got hit by a car going 20 miles an hour and went over the car. That is actually that is. I mean, it wasn't the actor, but it was a stunt guy. He did it in one take, thank God. But we were all with bated breath. But that was the stunt that he signed up for. So it was gung ho. The car went, he jumped up, the car actually hit him, and he went over the car. So, I mean, this is, yeah.
Imagine if that actor was like, no, I think the actor did say he wanted to do it, but a good stunt coordinator, which not all stunt coordinators are great. I've worked with tons of great ones. Chaz Mendez, who's our coordinator on Power, fantastic. Pete Lugosi, fantastic. Court Hessler, there's a million I could name. Great stunt guys who would never allow the actor to be put in that situation. But up and coming stunt coordinators, just to make themselves look good, will often be like, yeah, let the guest star do his own stunt. Wow. They're expendable. It'll make me look better because look what I was able to accomplish as the stunt coordinator here. But I suggest if they have a stunt guy ready for you, let your stunt guy do their work, especially if it's anything that's going to be, anything that could involve breaking bones. Don't do it.
Yeah. No, good to know, because a lot of people are eager to show their ambition and that they're, like you said, healthy, athletic, able to do that. And sometimes that takes over. So that's good to know that it really isn't safe. Many things are not real, what you see on TV, but these are. So
yeah, there are times that they are, and things can go wrong.
Yeah.
Look out for yourself.
Yeah.
You only got one body. I'm finding that more and more. Now that I'm in my 40s, believe me, I'm like, yeah, no, you could do it. Go ahead.
Yeah. What is the key to a successful and memorable audition? And how do you make yourself remembered? How do you get that check mark next to your name when you leave?
That is such an interesting question of how you make a memorable audition. I am a very poor auditioner. I've gotten better only in the last 10 years, and that's out of a 33-year career. I've always been a poor auditioner. I've always strived for too much perfection on the audition. I think auditioning is so hard. It's the hardest part about our business, I would say. I think that whatever you need to do to be the least nervous, you're going to run into so many people who are not supportive in an audition room. Either they're strange people, either they're producers who have no creative part in them anyway. You're going to have people, I've definitely one of those people who have had directors or producers or casting people, eating during my audition. Really disrespectful. It's astounding to me how disrespected the actor is. Now, I also produce. I just executive produced my first feature film. Thank you. I've directed and produced my own short film. So I've been on the other side of the camera auditioning people now too. So to answer that question, I think to do it as a producer is easier for me than as an actor, because as an actor, I just go in there. I love self-tapes.
Yeah.
When you're not in the room, I love that because it gives me the freedom of kind of interpreting the character without the pressure of prying eyes. I appreciate the distance. So when I see people, especially if you're in a room, which may not exist anymore in the COVID era, how do you get yourself recognized on the audition? Making those specific choices without, I would say it like this, always taking yourself seriously, but lightly. I think that when there's that kind of that freedom within the character where a director could see that they can direct you. Always, if a director is in the room, if you're on that, the callback and the director is there or whatever, so many times the director's giving you direction, not because they didn't like what you did, but to see if you can take direction. Their director wants to direct you. So always and don't get nervous. Just come up with whatever, you're able to come up with and stick with that and try to make yourself as unnervous as possible. There's a little beta blocker, which sometimes people take for high blood pressure called propranolol. This is probably not a great thing to be telling people, but I don't mind. I would take those because it's like a physical thing where it doesn't allow your heart to sometimes I would be so nervous and it would just be like, da-doon, da-doon. And I'd almost not be able to remember what I was thinking. And I'm, not like I'm saying that you should take drugs, but it's just a beta blocker. It's just for high blood pressure. But it was something that physiologically, it allowed me to be more free in the audition. So I would do that. Now I don't need it anymore because I'm at a place, thank God, in my career where if I'm not the right guy for the job, don't give me the job. I don't care. I'm confident enough, but it's very difficult to get to that place, especially if you don't come from money, if you don't have anybody in this industry. For those of us who just decided to be in this business, it's so difficult and it can be so stressful and straining to get to a place of confidence. I didn't have a support system. I didn't have any money. I lived so poor for so much of my life that now that I'm finally getting a steady paycheck, I always say I'm not getting paid for this job. I'm getting paid for the last 30 years.
It's true. It's true. It's an investment.
Yeah.
Countless hours of auditioning and making that one under 5 paycheck and being proud.
Oh my God. And the amount of time, how about those auditions when we spend 12, 15 hours on them, we put them on there and they're just like, yeah, no, thanks. And they didn't watch the audition, and it happens time and again. And you just have to know, that's why if you can do that experience as much for yourself as possible, it's tough. And people have been telling me, and I'm always like, well, get out of here. Are you nuts? But that's part of that is just saving that part of your spirit, because it can be really, really depressing when you put in, dozens of hours into this painting basically, and then somebody just whitewashes it as soon as you present it to them. Very difficult.
It's true. And thank you for being so honest about the emotional burden of this process. And now everybody who is going through it now will know that it too shall pass. It's
yes.
A lot of hard work. Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah. What about the actors who have gotten that under 5 or a small guest star or just a couple of lines, and it's very exciting to get it when you're just at the beginning of the path, and you're trying to think how you can do it so well that they're gonna want you again. So what is your guidance for those who finally got that small role and really want to do well?
You know what? It's so tough. Don't do too much. Don't try to do too much. It's such a balance because we're so excited that we've got those lines or those two lines, or you've got that one line where you basically are just going, who, me? And like, that's your whole thing. Just do it. Just be as honest and as truthful as you possibly can. And that'll go further than trying to be like, who, me? You know, it's like, come on, cut it out. Try to be human. Try to bring it down. Try to leave them wanting more.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of a controversial topic, but do you think it's a good idea to start as background, or do you think it's not the right way to go if you're looking to become a full-time actor?
I did background work out of necessity. I had to pay my rent. And I sometimes I would put up drywall or do odd jobs to pay my rent. And this time I was just like, I'll just do some background stuff. This is difficult because you have to do what you got to do to survive, right? But you do run a risk when you present yourself in any capacity. Like if you want to be an actor, but you're a stunt person and you're constantly being seen as a stunt person, it's very difficult to not just be seen as a stunt person. If you're in craft services and you want to be a director, it's tough. It's not impossible by any means. And there is something to being around the set and advancing yourself while being on the set. I mean, strictly talking about an act as acting, I think that there's nothing wrong with doing background here and there with getting your mind, keep your eye on the prize. Don't allow yourself to be like, hey, this is a good money. I'm a union background. I'm a union stand-in. If you're a stand-in for more than 1 year, unless you really enjoy it, if you enjoy it, do it. But if what you want to do is be the lead on that series or, one of those series regulars or whatever, and you're that stand-in, maybe give yourself, I'm going to do this for 1 year. And if that doesn't get to here, I have to figure out another path. Not, I hope they give me a chance. I hope this, my dad would always say, hope is not a strategy.
Yeah.
So maybe give yourself a little bit of time, but then look for the advancement.
Okay. But is that possible? And again, that's always a question. Can I get upgraded? Is that possible to get? How often have you seen it?
You see it every so often. Like basically, if the people love, you're a stand-in, right? And the people love you on there, or your background, and you've been on the background for years. They almost always will be like, we got to give Marcia a line over here or something like that. Or like give Bob a line or two over here. But is that what you want? Do you want to be thrown a bone, or do you want to do the job? You know what I mean? Do you want to get to that job? And that job is going to take, I think that it can lead to complacency. Mm-hmm. And complacency in this business is a bad move. Being stagnant is a bad move. I just did this movie, the movie that I EP'd and acted in during COVID. Mm-hmm. I did it because I was working with a director who I greatly respect and admire. But secondly, I did it because I was scared to death. What the heck? There was no script. There was no finalized crew list. And I'm picking up and driving across country with my wife and my cat I just rescued from Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. So I'm just like, I'm doing it because I'm afraid. And I think that that's an important lesson in this business. You got to do things that scare you. And also remember, anybody who tries to tell you that there are rules, this is the hardest one. This is a great one for young actors. Anybody who tells you there are rules in this business is lying to you. They're trying to manipulate you and they're trying to control you. There are no rules. There are people who have been doing stuff longer than you, and you may or may not want to listen to them. Don't forget, when you have youth on your side, newness and all these new ideas, and people are like, no, that won't work. Says who? They didn't try it. Yeah. Maybe it will work. You have to try it. Yeah. Be your own creative boss. Take those risks.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. That's inspiring. Ari Barkan said hi to you.
Oh, I love Ari.
Yeah, he's a sweetheart. Yeah, he was saying hi.
He's a great guy. Now look at Ari. Now Ari never took his eye off the prize. So I'll tell all the people. Ari Barkan, who we both know, is an actor here in New York, and he was doing background on a show that I did called The Heart She Holler. Maybe my favorite job I've ever had on Adult Swim. You should check it out. Fantastic. But he did some background and bit playing in that. But he also always does his own. Seeks out more work. He's always nose to the grindstone. He's working and hustling. He'll do little things here, little things there, and then his own big projects there. So anybody who works as hard as Ari does, I got nothing but respect for.
And he is so nice to everyone that he works with. So absolutely. So he passed down the question that it would. The biggest challenge for actors is landing an agent. So he suggested that you could share how to land an agent. So you had the slightly different path. Like you said, you invited agents to see you when you were performing. But what are some other ways to go about it?
Yeah, that was interesting how that happened. That was my mother's idea. Just like,
that's nice.
It's just, yeah, she was just like, oh, we'll just see if they want to come and we'll pay for your ticket. We didn't even know that they got industry comps. She didn't know. She's like, oh, we'll try to pay for their ticket.
These supportive moms can take you so far.
Yeah, it's unbelievable how supportive my mother was in this business. I don't know what I would have done without her. It's pretty amazing. She's pretty amazing. Getting an agent is hard and weird. I've never had an agent that was worth anything. I've never respected almost any agent, theatrical agent I've ever had until the guy I'm with now. Mm-hmm. I fall through the cracks. How do you present me? I'm not the most handsome guy in the world, but I'm not unattractive. I'm not character-y enough in this way. I fall through the cracks a lot. I think that I'd get a lot more respect if I was English, you know what I mean? Because I do a lot of character work. So they'd be like, we oftentimes are like, oh, can you believe it? He's doing this brilliant New York accent, but he's from Liverpool. But, so it's not like it's a weird thing. So I've never really had an agent that has been able to get me until the guy I'm with now, a guy named Jim Osborne over at APA. He's a fantastic agent. Mm-hmm. But it's rare. So it's, how do you land the agent? I don't know.
It's that bridge, when you haven't done much yet, but you're unable to get all these jobs without an agent, and then it's just crossing it. It's such a big challenge.
It is. It's like work begets work. There's so many opportunities to get in front of a camera these days, whether it's, your TikTok thing or your YouTube, or if your friends are doing a short film. Try to do the highest quality things you can do, but say yes to work more than you say no to work. Oh, I don't feel like it because I want to go drinking with my buddies on Saturday. You know what? Do that. Do the short film instead. If you really want to be an actor, get stuff for your reel. Hit people up more than once. Mm-hmm. So say I'm going to go, oh, you know what? I'm going to go with Stewart Talent here, who's a great agency here in New York or Chicago or Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. I'd love to get into Paradigm or, a bigger agency like that, or Gersh or something. And if Gersh says no once, maybe they'll say no twice. Maybe they'll say no 3 times. That doesn't mean you shouldn't go to them and put your material in the 3rd time. Mm-hmm. Talk to people, be honest and open of what you would like to do. Learn how to, be your own. I'm terrible at this. So it's like, I'm almost like lying when I'm giving this advice. It's like, learn how to be your own self-promoter in some ways. I'm terrible at that. I don't know how to do it. I'm just basically like, here it is. This is what I got. This is who I am. But I see people having more success when they're able to say, here's what I can do. Here's what I've done. What can you do for me? Blah, blah, blah. I see that often work. And also just get your stuff out there to a bunch of different agents. And if you have 2 agents that say yes, then ask them, hey, I'm thinking about going with your agency, but I also have, there's another agency I'm possibly thinking of. Where do you guys see me? Where do you guys see my career going? Ask those questions of what they think they can do for you, and allow them to pitch you a little bit. If they don't want to do that, maybe they're not the right agency for you. Most agencies are just going to throw I say it's the spaghetti theory. They're going to throw everything at you and see if anything sticks. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people get frustrated. Oh, my agency hasn't gotten me anything. This business is so bizarre and so weird. I'm so lucky at this point in my career now that, yes, I do still have to deal with casting, but not always. I mean, I can often get the stuff straight to the producer or the director that's involved. But that, has taken me many, many years and consistent work. So before that, the casting people, there's a lot of really great casting people. I mean, here in New York, we have brilliant casting people like A.V. Kaufman or Ellen Lewis, who are, the best of the best. Mary Vernew, people who are really creative people. Sarah Isaacson. You got great human beings in New York, Los Angeles. Become friendly with them. Be as cool as you can be. I mean, I'm not saying be fake, but like if you can get the casting people on your side, casting people usually love people who really believe in the craft, who are real actors, who they see working, not overly working, but who are really about being an actor and they want to help you succeed. So allow them to want to help you succeed and know that most casting people, even though sometimes they can seem overburdened and aloof, they want to see cool stuff get made and they want to root for actors that they like and try to be one of those actors that they like. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's such a weird question. It's so hard. It is. This business is so weird and hard. It
is. And sometimes there are no right answers, but they're just things that worked for you and that can help someone else. And that's why we like interviewing even from the same field, but different people, because everybody has their own path that someone else can relate to. So
the best thing that worked for me, weirdly enough, that you brought that up, that my mother invited the agencies to the theater, the casting directors that have seen me on stage have always worked hardest for me or always gone to bat for me more for film and television stuff. So I don't know if that's worth anything, but there it is.
Shout out to Mom.
Thanks, Ma.
Now, you mentioned asking them to explain where they see you. What are some other questions that actors should ask? Because we see it as more like, oh, they're going to select me, yay. But it's also about you selecting the agent. It's a mutually beneficial relationship. So what should actors ask their agents when they're making that decision?
Well, I mean, it's probably not a bad idea to see who else they represent. You can usually find a lot of that information online. Is there a million other people just like you? How does that strike you? Do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing? I usually tried to be kind of my own, I didn't want people who had a lot of people who I would deem were, kind of like me. Like if my same guy was like representing, I don't know, Ben Foster and John Bernthal and me, I'd be kind of like, well, they're kind of all going up for the same role, probably. It'd probably be best for somebody that's going to be able to focus on me getting the role, exclusively, rather than having a vested interest in people that are kind of tend to get similar material or whatever, or are similar type of, diverse character leading man actors. So you just ask yourself those questions. And again, there's no right or wrong answers. Just think what feels best to me, and try to make that path. And then also find people that you trust in this business. Like I have been blessed. One of my dearest friends is David Schwimmer, who's obviously incredibly successful, but he's also incredibly intelligent. So when I have questions about contracts or legal issues or hey, Schwim, what do you think about this? Or what do you think about that? I'm lucky enough to have some of those people in my life. So, when you meet those people, I think that it's invaluable to have people in this industry who you can look up to and who will take the time when it's really important to answer your questions. But, you'll just find those people. You don't have to go seeking them out. They'll find you. Birds of a feather will, eventually start flocking together. So, just have faith, be kind, calm, cool, and be who you are. Don't be fake and phony. You don't have to be.
Yeah. You brought up your wife, and you've been doing a great job at keeping your private life private. And not everybody was able to do that at at your level. So how do you suggest to keep your private life private when you still have to go to places and live a normal life? And how do you manage that?
Well, part of it is I'm lucky enough that my wife, who is in this business, but she's on the crew, she's very private. You know, it's just as simple as that. She's not on any social media. She doesn't engage in anything like that. She doesn't want to be. She wants her privacy, and she values her privacy above anything. So for me not to observe that, it would be a huge mistake for my marriage. And what it does too for me is it gives me a balance and a sounding board that's honest and true. So it's not somebody who's puffing up my ego. It's not somebody, she's, for an example, the first season of Power, when we were shooting Power, we were just filming. No, it hadn't been out yet, but I had already done True Detective, where I played this biker named Ginger, big beard, tough guy, real kind of, you know, a little bit, you know, nuts. He's doing crystal meth, and he's out of his mind. And all the people on the crew, when we were doing Power, because I looked so different, they were giving me such praise for the character. Man, that was incredible. And I couldn't recognize you. So I said to my wife, I said, you know, man, I was really, you know, I was kind of feeling myself a little bit. I came home and I'm like, honey, I mean, the crew, they didn't even recognize me. I was really in it. You know, I was really feeling that. And she said, sweetheart, you had a 3-foot beard and age makeup on. Of course they didn't recognize you. You did a good job. But like, you know, it's like, it's good to those people who are like, you did great. You know, you're fantastic. But like, let's, you know, take it down a notch. So I really appreciate, and I know that how blessed I am to have a sounding board like that in my life. And I think that it's important that we keep people who are honest with us, who don't bring us down, who don't knock us down at all, but they allow us to keep an honest perspective. Is good in our life. And then also, you know, my wife isn't looking for fame. She's not looking for fortune or fame. She's never telling me to take a job for the money. She's always like, as long as we're healthy and we're happy, that's most important. You don't have to take that job. We have a modest apartment in Brooklyn, and that's all we're going to probably ever have. And that's all we need. And that's enough. And that's enough. I'm pretty blessed.
That's nice. That's nice to hear. Actors, and as they're starting out, they're really trying to build that follow base. Is it really important when you're starting out, or should you just concentrate on it later on when you already establish your name, or is it just going to happen automatically when you establish your name?
Things have changed. Mine just happened because of, like, it was funny when I set up to be, for an example, when I helped, not even helped, but when I was encouraging David Schwimmer to get his Instagram, because, you know, he had like no Instagram.
He was like stuff. 10 posts there, but yeah.
Yeah, he's still only got like 10 posts, right? But he's got like that, but he's still got like 5 million followers. Yeah. And that literally just happened because he doesn't do anything. He's David Schwimmer, and then people want to see it, and there's nothing wrong with that. Whereas like me, mine is all Tommy from Power primarily. I didn't have any Instagram or any internet. I had no social media before Power. So the network told me I had to get the social media stuff. So people just started following because they felt like following, and to see if, you know, Joseph Sikora, who's Tommy from Power, is putting anything up. And most of my stuff is pretty professional. Now, one of my friends, a guy named Andrew Batchelor, King Batch, who's a internet sensation. He's just like, I said, how do I build up my followers? He's like, make it more personal. Like, you know, you don't post a lot of stuff, and your stuff is pretty much just about work. Let them see you a little bit more. And I tried to do it a little bit, but I'm really not comfortable doing it. So that's not who I am really. So it's, I have to be true to myself. Again, I'm not going to have as many followers, but I have enough, you know, a couple of million people is a pretty good amount of people for me right now. And when we do the Tommy show, you know, that'll increase. So yeah, I just let it happen organically. But again, you know, there's no rules for it, but it's tough. There's so many ways to get followers now. One of the big things that I see Batch doing, and a lot of young people, is creating their own content. People have such access to movie cameras, and the quality of stuff is so high. If you can, and you have the gumption for that, experiment the heck out of that. Make up your own stuff and put your own content out there. You never know what's going to hit. In fact, I might be watching it. I just started my own production company with my brother. My brother was an executive public PR publicity executive, and he quit his job to start our production company. So he's out there looking at content. So you never know.
Awesome. All right, everybody who's watching, reach out if you got something good.
You get something good.
Yes. And with the social media and that's also, I guess that's also personal, but usually is it run by the actual person, or is there a PR team who is running social media pages?
It all depends. I have friends who have their PR, who have quite a few less followers than me, who have their PR team run that. And then there's people like me, I run mine. 50 Cent, who has like 30 million or 35 or 40 million, he runs his own. I mean, I see him, I watch him. So
good to know.
He runs his in some ways, but he doesn't run all of his social media because he has so many other facets. He has thisis50.com is another outreach one of that just does stuff on 50. He's got also the G unit. So there's a lot of his. I think he runs a lot of his own Instagram, and then he has a lot of PR people doing his other stuff as well. It depends. If your base can gain hundreds of thousands of followers on its own, and it doesn't take much time out of your day, maybe you want to think about keeping it, because like my Twitter account, I think I have just over 200,000 followers on that, but I try to get back to almost every single person. Like I'll get back to 12, 20 people every day, because it just doesn't take much of my time. It takes 15, 20 minutes maximum to get on there, put something up, answer somebody back. And then that keeps me at a closer connection with my fan base. Yeah. Whereas like Instagram, it's impossible. And people tend to be, it's funny. People always talk about Twitter being so nasty. I find people on Instagram way more nasty and way more opinionated than that. But it's hard to ignore some of that stuff. So, you know, if you have too much nastiness, too much negative energy, I say ignore them all. They'll keep coming back.
Mm-hmm. That was actually my personal question. I didn't put it on the list, but now that you brought it up, how do you deal with people who just send negative things and mean things,
tough.
Threatening things? You know, it happens on social media so often.
It does. It's kind of gross.
Yeah.
I'm able to ignore it a little bit more now. Again, my wife is more like, don't read those comments. My wife is great because she always says this, but I'm like, oh, all these people are giving so much love because people love the Tommy character. Yeah. But she goes, if you believe all the love, you got to believe all the hate.
Yeah.
Don't believe any of it. Do it for you. And it's hard, but it's because it feels nice to get accolades. It feels nice to have people kind of giving you love. But you can't believe it. It's not true. It's as true as when people tell me that, you know, I'm the ugliest actor I've ever seen. I'm the worst actor they ever saw. You know, you're terrible. And I'm just like, I know I'm not. I know I'm not. But also it's the same as those people are like, you're the most amazing actor ever in the world. It's like, no, you're not. Don't do it to be the most. Don't do it to. I mean, I truly have to remind myself all the time. I got into this because I really and truly wanted to be a vessel and help people understand their lives by the portrayal of different characters. Mm-hmm. And I have to go back down to the nuts and bolts of it, and that being the main reason that I'm doing this, mm-hmm. and not for praise or, you know, like my agents and manager is always like, oh, you should have got nominated for this, for that, or you should have gotten this award or this. I'm just like, I don't care about the awards. And I truly don't care about the awards. So, like my wife tries not to even go. She's been nominated for 4 Emmys. You know, she's been nominated for, she's won tons of awards for her job. So it's like, you know, if we were in an awards competition, she would win in this household.
That's nice. No, I mean, you got a dream in your hands. You've been going towards this for so long. That's itself the recognition. It's a huge award. I mean,
I agree.
Yeah.
The biggest award is the work.
Yeah, getting to do what you love every day. It's
can't beat it.
No. You tried living in LA, but you chose the East Coast instead. A lot of people are trying to make that decision, whether to stay here in the area or whether to go there. What were some pros and cons, and what would you, I know it's a personal decision, but what did you see that was different in the industry here and there?
Well, you know, coming to New York many years ago, over 20 years ago, and then going to Los Angeles. Los Angeles was more, I mean, New York was just more like Chicago, so it was familiar, or familiar feeling. And what I did not like being bombarded by the industry. I always felt like a number, and I didn't feel like a person as much in Los Angeles. But I also never really had an artistic support system out there. Again, I ended up doing more theater than most people in Los Angeles, because that was just home to me, and I was probably happiest when I was doing theater. But I kind of should have gotten the hint early on. I mean, I was in and out of Los Angeles for 6 years when I probably could have spent a year and a half, 2 years max there, because I just felt like, if I just work harder, if I just do it, but I wasn't aware of myself. I wasn't aware that every time I got a job out of town, I took it. Every time I got a job back in Chicago or New York, I would take the play. I would I'd be happier if I was on the guest star that was on the Third Watch in New York, or Prison Break in Chicago. I'd be like, oh, I'm so excited to be going back home. Take that, look back at yourself and be like, oh boy, I shouldn't be here in Los Angeles. It doesn't feel right. And it just didn't feel right to me. But I also, like I said, didn't have the right support system there. And a lot of people are happy out there in Los Angeles. It's not for me. And I wish I was more self-aware during those times. I could have avoided a lot of hurt and heartache out there. But it's all personal. Again, like you said, it's all personal preference.
Absolutely. Did you get a chance to, I think you filmed in Pennsylvania.
Oh yeah, Jack Reacher.
Yeah.
Yeah, Pittsburgh.
Yes. How did you like filming in PA?
I loved PA. I loved PA. I also filmed Safe. We filmed Safe in Philly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, with my terrible Russian. Don't judge me. I did my best. I wish I had Ari there to help me. See, I met him too late. But I love PA. PA is a great state. I drive through PA every time I go back to Chicago, so I'm on 80. It's the longest state. It's just getting your content made and getting it out there. My best advice to anybody would be develop the idea thoroughly, understand the world that you're creating with that idea, write the script if you can. Very few people I meet sell ideas. You know what I mean? If you're James Cameron, you can sell an idea. You're not just, I can't just sell an idea. I have to create the story. I just got the rights to a great book. I had found the screenwriter that I'm going to work with. My brother is going to go try to get millions of dollars from overseas to have a base for the movie. Then we're going to, it's a huge amount of work to put that in process. So I would say that here's a great lesson for people to remember. Nobody likes to work. So when you're starting out, you have to do the lion's share of the work. This guy's making all this money. He's not doing anything. Yeah, but you don't understand what that person did to get to that place that they're at right now. Again, you got to know your value, know what you're worth, know how to say no, but also know that if you're just starting out, you have to bring this idea to somebody who can get that idea to Lionsgate, who can get that idea to Universal. And if you can do it, God love you. But it's a very difficult path that other people have towed on the ground. That's why that path exists for them, is they've gone backwards and forwards 100 times, 1,000 times, 10,000 times. That's why that path exists. So sometimes you have to create that product, have somebody that has that path to that outlet, believe in your product. That's the value that they bring as a producer now onto your product, and they'll bring it to that second place. They also are bringing their wisdom, the time they've been in this industry, and they can add. So only partner with people that you believe in, who can get your script or your idea or whatever to the next level. But just know that the people who have built those relationships have done it over a long time and a lot of struggle. Yeah.
And what about those who have started already, gotten some financing, put together crew, looking for name actors, but these are, low budget indie films? Is there a possibility?
Go through their agencies. If it's a quality thing, Yeah, it's possible for sure. But I would say rather than presenting it straight to the actor, unless you somehow have a pre-existing relationship, like if my stand-in was just like, hey, Joe, and this happened to me, hey, will you look at this? Yeah, sure. Would you like to be part of it? Yeah, sure. If you can get funding, I'll do the film. And it, you know, they didn't get the funding in time. And then the role ended up having to go to somebody else because I was unable to do it. But like, I don't mind that at all. That's fine. But most times and most people, you know, go through the steps, the proper steps. You go through the agency, you can't lose, because that's the proper way to go through it. So if you try to, like, you know, if you try to bypass steps, you can, but it doesn't always work. But it's fail safe to go through the agent, because the agent might read it and just be like, you know what, this project is the next thing that could really help them shine. Or, you know, they see your short film and your concept film that you've put together, and they're like, you know what, this could be, and then they can work on their client and tell them why they think it's a good step in the right direction too. But if you go straight to the actor and they say no, it's a much more difficult. Like if I said no to somebody and then my agent brought the same project to me, I'd be like, I already said no. I'm not even going to think about it. Yeah. So it's probably a best move to do that with your material.
But you think it's possible even with short films to go to name actors and they'd be open?
100%. 100%. It's possible to get name actors attached to your short film as long as you go through the proper channels, go through their agency. I think that if you're able to get anything up and moving right now in the time of COVID, people will respect that you're able to get something accomplished and put their hat in the ring. All they can do is say no. So it's always a good idea to ask.
Sure. Now looking back at all these successful years of a career, what would you suggest? 3 pieces of advice or lessons that you've learned, or maybe mistakes to avoid?
The first lesson that I learned that I would like everybody to try to do, because I know that everybody can do it, and that's just to be kinder to yourself. I was so hard on myself, and I beat myself up so much for not booking the audition or a plethora of things. I didn't work hard enough. I didn't do this. Just forgive yourself and keep moving on. The second piece of advice that I would give is, it's interesting. It's almost a 2-parter, but it'll be both my answers, is say yes more. I wish I said yes more to things. And also, I wish I learned how to say no. I don't have time for that. I don't want to do that. It's a tough balance, but I think that you learn to say no when you remember your value. And if something kind of, you know that you're worth more than that, or you need to be seen in a different way, you can say no. The last thing that I would say is that, remember that acting is a part of your life. It's not life. It's not going to make or break you. It shouldn't make or break all of your happiness, and it shouldn't dictate how you live your life. It really wasn't until I met my wife that I finally had something in my life that I valued more than acting, and then I got way more work. I don't know why it worked out like that, but I think that that's pretty consistent. When there's something, say you just, like my friend Ido Goldberg, who's an incredible actor. He's in Snowpiercer now. He's in Peaky Blinders. I'm sure a million other things that people know. He loves photography, and I know he loves acting, and I know he loves directing, but he loves photography so much that I think it gives him this comfortability in acting, that it gives him this freedom of like, yes, I'm going to do this, but there's other things in my life that I love every bit as much as this. There's other art in my life. There are other things in my life other than this. And I think that allows you to be a more rounded human and thusly a little more grounded and accessible and interesting.
Yeah. Thank you. That was deep, and definitely something you don't think about as you are going towards this goal, and you forget to enjoy the path, enjoy the journey. And now, to end this fantastic masterclass with so much invaluable information, whom would you like to nominate to send the elevator back down and help aspiring actors or filmmakers make it where they dream to be?
I would love to nominate, if this person has any time. He's one of the busiest guys I know, and that is Dion Taylor from Hidden Empire Films, who just directed Don't Fear, the film that we did together in California. He directed The Intruder that I did with Dennis Quaid and Megan Good and Michael Ealy. Black and Blue he did with Tyrese, that's coming out. Another one, Fatale, with Michael Ealy and Hilary Swank. He's the most creative guy. He's the most inspiring guy. He's one of my favorite people in this entire industry. And he is truly a self-made filmmaker, and he's an absolute inspiration. And I hope to be working with him until I'm an old man.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for this nomination. We'll definitely reach out. And Joseph, thank you for your sincerity. Thank you for being so honest about the challenges of this path, and for giving so much practical advice that can really be applied on set. We really appreciate you joining our mission. Thank you.
My absolute pleasure. And to everybody out there, go break a leg.
Thanks, Joseph.